Hello and welcome to the fourth opposition preview of the season, and it brings me great pleasure to introduce an amazing Derby fan from an amazing Derby podcast. Steve Bloom is washing, it's called, and I'm here speaking with Chris Parsons this evening. Chris, how are you doing?
All right, thanks, Chris. How are you?
Good. I'm pleased you're good despite the start to your season. I'm also good. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, it's been the smiles hide my thinly concealed rage and disgust at the start of our season, but I'm sure we'll get onto that in due course.
Yes, we absolutely will, Chris, for sure. Chris, I'm gonna dive straight in. I'm gonna give you a two-footed challenge from behind to kick things off. Why are Derby County the Championship's nearly men?
Look, if I knew the answer to that, then I'd probably be working for the club itself. Look, there's no easy, straightforward answer to that question. The various failures that we've had have been for various different reasons. Steve McLaren came close twice. Since 13-14 was when McLaren took us to those levels. We obviously missed out in the last minute of the playoff final in 2014, then missed out on the top six on the final day in 2015, then lost in the semi-finals in 2016 to Hull, then 2017 finished ninth. That was fine. I was quite happy with that, really. And 2018 lost in the playoffs to Fulham in the semi-final, who went on to get promoted.
Yeah.
And 2019 lost in the final to Villa, who went on to get promoted. So look, there's various different reasons. It's been a sort of the same core of players. It's been maybe three or four who've been there for most of those seasons. And I guess the short answer is we haven't been good enough. There's been a little bit of bad luck along the way. There's been times in various seasons where we've had quite bad injury crises, but every club has that. There's been some questionable transfer activity along the way, but yeah, fundamentally, we've bottled it every time, basically. I guess that's all I can really tell you.
Well, that's fair, and I respect you for admitting the bottle job coin term that people tend to give Derby. It was Leeds, but now I guess that only falls on you, Chris. Wayne Rooney, speaking of transfer business, we have to talk about him. You've spoken about poor business. Wayne Rooney, good business or questionable business?
If you asked me at the start of lockdown, I said very good business, because when he arrived, there was a lot of controversy about his arrival, who was paying for his wages, the number on the back of his shirt, etc., etc. But when it came down to the football, and when he first arrived, he transformed us. We were awful until Christmas of last season. We couldn't score away. We were a bottom half team. We were in terrible form. But from January onwards, we hit a really rich vein of form. We were second in the form table behind Fulham last season for a good portion of the season post Christmas in the Championship. Then lockdown happened, and there was the big pause. And then when things came back, we did win 5 in a row. And Rooney was again key to that. He was showing his quality on the ball. He was pinging around those Hollywood balls that you'd expect. He was on set piece duty. His technical quality was obviously completely bang on. Far superior to any dead ball quality we had. He can see passes the rest of our team couldn't see. He was playing passes a lot of his teammates didn't anticipate some of the time. So he was fantastic. But then towards the end of last season, we went off the rails a bit. We had a tough run in. We lost to the likes of Cardiff and Leeds and Drew Forest, sorry, and Brentford and West Brom. We had a really hard run in against most of the top six, and it didn't go well. And then since we came back this season, he's been completely off the pace. He's looked very, very sluggish. He's been at fault for several goals we've conceded. He was at fault for 2 of the goals that we conceded at weekend against Blackburn. he's basically admitted himself that he's not quite match fit. But look, this is Wayne Rooney. If you got someone of his technical quality, I think at the moment it's been a risk that we've been willing to take. We've just been prepared to stick him in there, hope that his quality on the ball makes up for the fact that he doesn't really run anymore. But yeah, the last couple of games, this season, he's just been he's struggled physically. He's getting out-muscled, outran, out-battled by a lot of Championship midfielders, and him and Max Bird, who plays alongside him, one of our young crop who are coming through, are just giving our back four just no protection whatsoever. Really? And because of that, Reading did it on the opening day, Luton did it the week after, and Blackburn did it the weekend. Like, teams are just being able to run at us basically at their own will, and I'm relatively confident that you could have an absolute field day on Saturday. It's bleak.
Chris, I really didn't expect you to say that, and I was going to ask you about your weakness, but I think you've analysed it right there. I really didn't expect you to say that, because I feel like and I'm sure you had this at the start, it almost feels like Mel Morris has been playing like Football Manager or FIFA, bringing in Wayne Rooney to play in a Derby shirt. It must have been really surreal for you, right? When you first signed him, it must have been a bit like, what? How the hell have we pulled this off? Or
it was absolutely mad. Yeah, I've still got a distinct memory of watching the Barnsley game, I think it was, on his debut, and seeing him in the tunnel and seeing him in our shirt before the teams came out, and I just thought, this does not seem right. This is England and Manchester United's all-time top goal scorer playing Barnsley on a Tuesday night for Derby in the Championship in January. But yeah, in terms of Mel, he's a completely different story, really. You could do entire podcasts about his ownership and what he's done right, and the mistakes that he's admitted that he's made. Look, he's a lifelong fan. He's undoubtedly got the interests of the club at heart. He would probably say himself, maybe he's acted on impulse once or twice. He's maybe acted on emotion rather than as a businessman, perhaps he might say. But I think it's one of them where, look, we needed or wanted a big name. I think he's a fan of a big name, we saw the previous season with Lampard, and we're seeing with Koku, and even, when like Lampard brought in like Ashley Cole. So he's not afraid to go for a big name if it means it's commercially viable. But it was very, very strange seeing him turn out for us. And the bizarre thing is that Derby fans saw him play in flesh for about 10 games, and then we haven't seen him since, because it's all been behind closed doors. And now he's on an 18-month contract, which takes us to the middle of next year. And there's no sign of fans being allowed back into games really before then. So there's a good chance that all Derby fans will see in the flesh of Wayne Rooney is 10 games at the start of 2020, which is really sad and a real shame.
Yeah. No, it is. And you bring up Mel Morris there, and I want to touch upon something that I kind of looked into today, which I found quite interesting. Despite signing the huge household name in Wayne Rooney, Mel Morris has come out and said that he wants 50% of his team to be academy graduates. Is that correct?
He did say, he actually made that promise several years ago. Yeah, he said he within a certain period of time, he wanted like 50% of the starting 11 to be made up of academy products, and he basically achieved that a few months ago. So at the time when we had Bogle at right back, Lowe at left back, and then Louis Sibley, Jason Knight, Max Bird, and Morgan Whittaker around the first team, that's six, 7 players, and there's 1 or 2 others I've forgotten as well. So those players have been had mixed fortunes in terms of like how they've adapted to the first team. I mean, like Bogle was like the breakthrough success story under Lampard, and we ended up selling him to Sheffield United. Max Lowe went as well, and Sibley really burst onto the scene. He scored a hat-trick during lockdown, and then scored the game before that as well against Blackburn. So he really looks like he's settling. Struggled a little bit since, but the whole team has really. Max Bird's really slotted in and looked like a natural, and again, until quite recently, is quite calm in possession in that sort of in that unglamorous like defensive midfield role in front of the back four. So yeah, he Mel goes for the big names. He goes for the moonshot projects, to coin a terrible government slogan. But I think he can see the bigger picture, and he as I said before, he genuinely wants the club to succeed. He genuinely wants to leave the club in a better shape than he found it. He just has sometimes unorthodox methods of doing that, as perhaps Derby's recent EFL charge testified.
Indeed, and look, football ownership is a very complex discussion. You know, Norwich fans have it a lot around. Dealer and Michael, of course, massive fans, huge fans, go to the game, should be applauded for that. But it's not short of, it's complete common knowledge that they're down to their last peanuts. They've given everything, they've saved us. But can we make that step up with them still at the helm? It's tough to see past that. One more big name that we of course we have to talk about, Chris, is that crazy season under Frank Lampard. Frank Lampard's Derby, as everyone was saying. I enjoyed watching it from afar, I must say. I'm genuinely not just saying that. It seemed like a really fun time to be a Derby fan. What was that season like under Frank Lampard?
For the most part, it was great. He came in as an unknown quantity, and I think the best thing was the connections that he had and the players that he brought in. I mean, you only have to look at how like Tomori and Mount, and to a lesser extent Harry Wilson, are doing now, to see just how much of a coup it was for us to get all three of those players in on loan in that season. But yeah, we were like gung ho. We had no fear at times in that season. You know, the crazy game at your place, the 4-3, was sort of symbolic of that. Really, it was pretty ding dong stuff at times. Like, we couldn't always defend that well, but I don't think I'm really in a position to talk about defending now, given given what we're like now. And look, when we look back on that season, and we look back on the Leeds semi-final, when we did what no other team has ever done in the semi-final and lost the first leg at home, but won away and got to the final and set history. Look, we lost in the final. Everyone knows that. And it pains me to say it, that Leeds are going to succeed in the Premier League. But that night was one I'll never forget, because we took the game to them like no one else ever has done. And when we'd been written off in that tie, he pulled off basically a minor miracle. And he gave us that night, and there was like the cup win at Old Trafford as well, when Wilson scored the free kick from miles out, and there were we gave like Chelsea a nosebleed, beat Southampton away in the cup as well, and had a lot of fun, played some good football, and scored a lot of goals along the way. It's just a shame that that we just didn't really do ourselves justice in the final against Villa, because the common consensus is that Lampard didn't really put our best team out, given that he decided to not start Jack Marriott, who had been so influential in the second leg against Leeds, and he played Mason Bennett instead, who just didn't really offer the same sort of threat. So look, there were huge ups and downs, but look, as the cheesy cliche goes, it wasn't about the destination, it was about the journey.
And it was fun, and that's what football should be about, right, Chris? You know, we should be there to be entertained, and not to pour more misery on you. But let's now bring this to present day, and let's talk about the start of your season. I really want to get into a Derby County fan and get into your brain, and I want to get it from you. What the hell is going on? Because the start of the season has been atrocious, I think is fair to say. Scoring 1 goal, conceding 8, I think it is. You're 4-0 at the weekend. I know Blackburn are a solid Championship side. Where do you go from here? You know, because that start is not good for that. That's not Derby County standard, in my opinion. As a obviously a Norwich fan, I look at Derby and I think that's a team that should be coming out the gates flying. They should be in and around the playoffs all season. I know it's early days, but are you worried looking at those results?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, it's been absolutely awful. It's been a catastrophically bad start. It's our worst start to a season in 28 years, and the facts don't lie. I think to look at the wider issue and where we go from here, you have to look at the context. You have to look at what Koku was and is dealing with. Last season was just such a mess for so many reasons. The incident with Richard Keogh and the crash, the EFL charge, so much more, so many other things as well that I could bore you with for hours. So last season, Koku had a lot of credit in the bank. A lot of fans were saying that we can't really judge him on last season. And then we had a shorter pre-season, but nonetheless, so did everyone else. And he's brought in some of his own players. He's brought in some of his own targets. But look, it's gone incredibly badly. We just cannot keep a clean sheet. We are defending woefully at the moment, absolutely atrociously bad at the back. Part of it is you don't want to blame individuals, but there's the likes of Mike Taveric, who's a Dutch defender who Koku targeted early and brought in from his native Holland, from Groningen, who seemed to fit the mould. He was meant to be Richard Keogh's replacement. A good age, I think he's 26 or 28 or something. Captain in Holland, experienced, but he's looked lost. He's looked completely lost on the championship pitch. He's looked, I don't want to go as far as saying out of his depth, but he was at fault against Reading. He got sent off against Preston, and he was all over the place against Blackburn. On top of that as well, the rest of our back four haven't really been great either. Koku has chopped and changed quite a lot. I think if you chop and change your back four, you're going to struggle to consistently keep clean sheets. So there is that as an issue. And going back to the context and what Koku's dealt with, part of the problem is that we haven't really been able to put out our first choice 11 all season. We are missing some influential players. We've missed our record signing Christian Bielik for a year now, who is the exact sort of player we're missing. He's like a rangy, aggressive, defensive midfielder who protects the back four, gets moves going, screens in front of the centre backs, turns defence into attack. And Rooney and Bird just can't do that. They're weirdly too young and too old at the same time. But Bielik is in theory the person who does that job. So we've got players who aren't doing their jobs. We're missing players who would be doing those jobs, and we've got problems up front as well. I mean, our top three scorers last season: Tom Lawrence, Martin Waghorn, and Chris Martin. They got about sort of 35 goals between them. No, I didn't actually bang it. I didn't bang them in, but they have respectable records. Lawrence is still missing. Waghorn's still missing, and we let Martin go. So we're looking a bit toothless up front and a bit shambolic at the back, and that recipe means played 3, lost 3, scored 1, conceded 8.
Well, Chris, look, Super Chrissy Martin, of course, Norwich City legend. I mean, I have no idea why you didn't keep him, of course. Chris, quick fire around this one. I'm going to ask you 2 questions on your instinct answer. The first is going to be, who is your player to watch for Derby County? Who should Norwich be scared of?
So the answer to that is our newest signing, Polish international winger Kamil Jóźwiak, who we bought in from Lech Poznan for about 3 to 4 million a week or 2 ago. He's young, can play either side, left or right in the front three. Hasn't scored yet, but looks very promising. He can cut in. He's quick. He likes getting into the box and shooting. And frankly, we're pinning a lot of our hopes on him, really, because the goals aren't really coming from anywhere else. So we're all desperate for Jóźwiak to do well, and hopefully, fingers crossed, he might get off the mark against your boys.
Interesting, because we've also got a Polish winger in. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name. I just call him PP. If you want to go and see who he is, be my guest. From a Norwich City point of view, Chris, looking at our side, who are you a bit fearful of going to this game against your leaky defence?
Well, I know I saw a fair bit of Norwich last season, and it looks like you've kept the core of that team together when you've come down. And I was thinking back to when we played during the promotion season, Hernandez gave us all manner of problems in that 4-3. And I saw that he's involved again this season, so he'll give us trouble. I mean, look, Pukki's going to score goals at this level, of course he is. And talking about the back four not having much protection and players being able to find space, break the lines, run at our centre backs. I guess Todd Cantwell is a sort of player who can do that quite readily. So any one of those three, I'm almost certain will score on Saturday.
It's funny that I agree with you, but it's also very funny in a Norwich City context, and I'm sure many Norwich fans watching this now will be like, yeah, because there's quite the debate around Mr. Campbell at the moment. So it's very interesting.
He could be on his way, right? Are there bids in for him from other teams at the moment?
Could be on his way. Daniel Farke decided to say a few very harsh words in his post-match press conference, which has caused all manner of interesting conversations behind the scenes. Anyway, quickly moving on. Chris, we can't do this pre-match. We really need to talk about that, what I would call iconic game, actually, in that season. That the Norwich fans will remember it as the floodlight failure, but you'll remember it as one of the best wins under Frank Lampard, 4-3. And that game was just crazy. And as you said, it epitomised what you were trying to do that season. That was a bonkers game, wasn't it?
Oh, it was mad. It was so much fun. It was the last game of the year, wasn't it? It was it 29th of December or something like that, I think. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, defence is not on top, it's fair to say. But some great goals in that game. If I can cast my mind back, I think Tomori scored by smashing in a volley in off the crossbar. It's a brilliant goal. And Mount scored a really quality strike as well from a well-worked corner. And then I think we ended up going 3-2 down. And then did the floodlights fail? And then the players went off and then came back on again. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, and basically, loads of Norwich fans decided to blame the floodlight failure for the reason why Christoph Simban didn't smash it into Rose. But that is indeed what happened. Or it might have been on 3-3. I can't quite remember. Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, I remember and then I think the equaliser was just a really terrible, bundled over the line job from Josefsson. And I think the winner was just a big lump up field, and we got a lucky flick on. I don't know what your defender was doing, but Marriott got in behind and dinked the keeper. It was an absolutely crazy game. And I think when we got that result, we did sort of start to believe that something could happen that season.
I'm always, and we're going to go on to it right here, right now, actually. I personally, and again, let me know in the comments below how you approach a game against Derby. But for me as a Norwich fan, I'm always fearful. I think Derby have been a bit of a bogey team for us, actually. I think particularly in the last few years, I am always worried about playing Derby. I am quite optimistic ahead of this game, but we've had some fun over the years. I mean, I remember the 3-2 at Carrow Road when Robbie Savage was still playing for you, and I think it was, I can't remember who it was. Someone offered the Derby County players loads of money to try and beat us, didn't they? I don't even remember that. But you guys narrowly lost 3-2.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, it was definitely the Savage era, and I think Simeon Jackson scored the winner in injury time, didn't he?
Yes. He did.
That's about all I can remember. I wouldn't like to comment on any offers of money made at any point. I'm not saying that's not true. There've been some good games down the years for sure.
Yeah, no, they have. And interestingly enough, looking at the previous head-to-head statistics, Norwich have one more, 28 wins for us. Derby've won 21, but we've drawn 19. So again, it could go either way. And speaking of which, Chris, give us your score prediction. What does your head say, and what does your heart say?
I think my head and my heart both say heavy defeat right now. Look, it's our fans are looking at our October fixtures from behind their hands, basically. After we play you, we're playing Watford, and then also in October we're playing Forest and Cardiff and Bournemouth. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see us in the bottom three at the start of November. And look, these games can be strange. We're in god-awful form. We can't score. We can't defend. But it's the sort of game that we ended up winning 1-0. So because it's just a sort of bonkers thing that can happen, isn't it? But I'm not sure that the footballing gods will look on us in that favourably, and I think you'll have too much for us. I just can't see it any other way right now. The phrase we're all saying is that things are going to get worse before they get better. So my heart says, look, score draw at an absolute push. And my head says 2-0 Norwich.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. Well, I am going to my head says, actually, believe it or not, my head says 1-1. I think that there's some very interesting things going on behind the scenes at Norwich at the moment. To drop your two most creative players, still haven't found our best team. Just off the back of a disappointing away loss to Bournemouth. I just have got a weird feeling that this is going to be quite a slow starter for Norwich. I think Derby will come to defend, actually. You might disagree, but I think, in light of what you've just said, bearing in mind you've just gone and got smashed 4-0, I think that you'll probably try and defend as well as you can, get some men behind the ball, which a lot of people are doing to Norwich. So I think it will be a draw, but I also think my heart says it should be like a 2 or 3-0 win for Norwich. It should be, but what do we know?
Yeah, I don't. It wouldn't surprise me to see us park the bus. Really, just proper go back to basics. Like 4-5-1, marry it up on his own, so maybe we'll hang on for a narrow defeat. But it's really hard to see where the goals are coming from, unless someone like Uzviak will get a bit of magic from somewhere. So that's all I'm clinging on to right now.
Well, I hope it doesn't work out for you. No offense, Chris. Chris, before we go, thank you very much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. Where can people give you stick online?
So you can find us on Twitter. It's at Steve Bloomer Pod. We're on Facebook and Instagram as well. Just search Steve Bloomer's Washing, all one word. And the podcast is on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud.
Chris, top man, I've really enjoyed your company tonight. Thank you very much. And for everyone watching and listening, I hope you're well. I hope you're safe during these times. And fingers crossed the next time I speak to Chris, he'll be crying. And fingers crossed the next time I see you guys will be after a splendid, comfortable win against Derby.